Hello everyone, this is Mahesh Prabhu. Uh, am I audible to you all? So, thank you so much. The attendance is far higher than I thought last time. So, there is a chat system down there. So, can you please confirm me if I am audible to you? Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. So, there have been more than 300 attendees. So, thank you so much. So since I didn't subscribe for more than 100, what I have done is I'm live streaming this live on my Facebook page on Vedic Management Center as well as you, Mahesh Prabhu. So feel free to access from there, just in case you're not able to see through this from here. So now let me share my deck with you. So today we are going to talk about Chanakya's Rajaneeti and Kootaneethi. Chanakya is a very fascinating subject for Indians specifically. He was the first diplomat, statesman, thinker, as well as one of the greatest authors of the text on leadership called Arthashastra. And he was one of the primary reason who in 2000 years was if India is anywhere where it is today, the geographically, we owe a great deal of debt to him. And today we are going to learn about the very little known aspects of his work, that is Rajaneeti and Kootaneethi. Those who know Hindi or any Indian languages, they will have definitely heard about this word, Rajaneeti. It is often interconnected with politics. Kootaneethi, on the contrary, very few people know about it. What exactly is this Kootaneethi? How does it work with Rajaneeti? What can the modern civilization achieve from this? That is the objective of today's webinar. And I hope I'll do justice to this grand work. Do note that although a great many aspects what I'm going to present you might be fascinating, they are not in full. I can, with the limited time that I have here, I can only give you a brief gist of it. And I hope it does enlighten you to benefit from it in your day-to-day life. So let's begin. What is politics? 90% of the people on earth, if you're going to tell them about this word, they're going to say, that's not my cup of tea. I've got nothing to do with politics. The politics has a diverse implication. There's a politics that is played on a national level. There's a politics which is played on state level. There's a politics which goes on in the workplace, the place where you go for earning your bread and butter. There's also a politics that goes on in families. No matter where you are, no matter who you are bound to have an implication of this politics in your life. If you understand it, you will be able to handle it better. You will benefit from it. If you do not understand it, then be advised, ignorance is not bliss. Now, in the general context, the politics is defined as a set of activities that are associated with making decisions in groups or other forms of power relations between individuals, such as the distribution of resources. The academic study of politics is often referred to as political science. Now, this is how the modern education system understands politics. Believe it or not, politics is the second oldest profession on earth. And the first profession is prostitution. And I need to tell you something interesting out here. I once met a great statesman, and he was giving a good lecture. And after his lecture, someone stood and asked him a question. Why do you think that politics has no structured manual or a textbook or a course or anything as such? So he said, probably because it's as old as prostitution. Maybe people thought that you don't need to study it at all. Now, here's the interesting fact for you all. The modern education system has no textbook or courses to teach politics at all. They either teach history of politics or economics. True understanding of politics is very little known to modern thinkers. And that is the reason why we see in the modern world why people are so much divided in their political opinions. And when they feel so strongly, their emotions are so catastrophic. It's hate, at the end of the day. And it's very, very devastating. In Vedic literature, the politics is known as Rajneeti. And this word has two other Vedic Sanskrit words. One is Rajo or Raja. The Rajo is actually a name of a guna or quality of an individual. There are basically three gunas: sattva, that is sagely; rajo, which is middling; and tamas, which is very negative. Now the rajo guna is in the middle, and because to manage the things in administration, in leadership, you need to take the good as well as bad people, okay? The people who are very balanced as well as those who are absolutely without a balance. And you have to take them together, and you need to work forward to achieve something concrete in politics. So that is why the politics is considered as better achieved through the process of Rajoguna. The second word that it comes into play is Neeti or conduct. So Rajaneeti can be better understood as anything that helps us to manage the things around us at a personal as well as institutional level to balance things. The objective of politics is to balance. It is not to dominate. It is not to conquer. It is to make sure that everybody has been given a balanced approach, an equal opportunity to achieve whatever they desire in sync with Dharma. We'll come to Dharma in the coming slides. The objective of Rajaneeti, according to Kautilya, is to achieve Shakti or power for universal welfare. Now, to achieve Shakti, one must be Shakta. So if you want power, you must be deserving of power. The biggest problem we have in our political system today, it doesn't matter the developed world or the underdeveloped or all the third world. Everywhere you have a fundamental issue when it comes to understanding who deserves the power. Not a single textbook, not a single thinker has been able to explain in simple terms who can be deserving of power. According to Kautilya, one becomes Shakta or a person deserving of power only when he follows Dharma. It is very important to know here that Dharma is often mistranslated as religion. It is never religion in the Vedic Sanskrit. So no matter what, every time I use the word Dharma until expressed otherwise, consider it as essentially a moral conduct, which is good for all. Defining Dharma is very difficult. There is no parallel word in English or any other language which can explain Dharma. In Mahabharata, actually, Bhishma says it is impossible to explain Dharma. On the contrary, he says it might be easier to explain the travesties of life than to explain Dharma. However, in a very simple terms, Dharma can be better understood as a conduct where you don't do anything to others which you don't want others to do to you. So it is principally about not having double standards. That is, in this context that we are going to speak now, this definition will hold a good water. Now, the Rajaneeti Shakti or Rajya Shakti has three major limitations. So most people will say that, oh, he is an MP, he is an MLA, okay, he is the Prime Minister, he is the President of the United States. He must be very powerful, he must be happy, oh, he must be able to do everything, you know. So the idea that a common person has about the people with power and in positions of power is sort of delusional. It is never right perspective to begin with. According to the Arthashastra, this political power has three major limitations. The first limitation is that it is dukkha mishritam. Dukkha means pain. It is very painful to hold on to this power. Just look at any political personality today. Just imagine, you may say that, oh, he is in a position of power, but what is the amount of objection do these people have to suffer? Okay, they may have a personal problem, but if they are going to say that, oh, I'm not able to work because I have a personal problem, they are going to say, get lost, you know, who asked you to be in positions of power in the first place? So no matter what you do in politics, you are always going to suffer criticism as well as, you know, a kind of a devious way to dethrone you. You'll have very tough opponents in politics. The second limitation of Rajya Shakti is that it is atriptikatvam. No matter how long you are in power, no, we have never had a politician anywhere in history who said, okay, now I've been in power for, you know, for a decade or 2 decades, so let me retire. Nobody has thought that. If you look at, you know, if you look at Middle East, you have had dictators like Muammar, Gaddafi, you know, Assad, or, you know, even the Egyptian president, Hosni Mubarak. They ruled their lands for almost 3 decades. And not even once did they think that, oh, I'm getting old, or may I have had enough. That is the greatest limitation of power. You cannot hold on to it, but still you cannot have enough of it. The third thing is that it is bandhakatvam. It will hold you hostage. The biggest problem any politician faces is that, what if I lose? What would happen to me if I lose my power? Will they create troubles for me? So let me not leave power. Let me be, you know, hold on to it. So he thinks that it is in his interest or her interest to hold on to that power, but it is actually the power that makes them deluded to hold on to it, even when it is not necessary. So these three are the major reason also why a great many people, very many politicians do a lot of outrageous things, including corruption, but not limited to corruption. The oldest book that seamlessly connects, explains leadership, management, politics, and diplomacy was written at least 5,000 years ago by a Vedic rishi or a sage named Bharadwaja, and it was called Arthashastra. Now you might say that, oh, no. Arthashastra was written by Chanakya or Kautilya. Well, you are very much wrong. We know this to be true because if you read Arthashastra in its original Sanskrit, he clearly states the who started writing it, and he clearly mentions Bharadwaja as the person who wrote the Arthashastra for the first time. The other sages who find mention in Arthashastra of Kautilya is Parashara, Pishuna, Shukracharya, also known as Acharya Shukra, Manu, and then finally Kautilya. The last edition of Arthashastra, the only available version of the text, is the one edited by Chanakya, also known as Kautilya, also known as Vishnu Sharma, or even sometimes referred to as Vishnu Gupta. So that is the reason why it is often called as Kautilya's Arthashastra. It is the only Arthashastra, the only version of Arthashastra that is available to us today. All the previous Arthashastras have lost to time. So we have nothing significant about it. It's just a mention that we find in Kautilya's Arthashastra about them. There is one more book which often people refer to. It's called Chanakya. Be advised, Chanakya was never written by Chanakya or Kautilya. Now, that is one of the best-selling books in the country. Everyone would say that, do you know Kautilya? Oh, yes, yes, yes. I have read his Chanakya. It's so fantastic, so brilliant. Those who criticize Chanakya or Kautilya also cite that book because there are a lot of misogynistic, anti-feminist statements in Chanakya's Niti. One of the greatest critic of Arthashastra and so-called critic of Arthashastra and Chanakya told me that, do you know how much he dreaded women? So he said that, the women are hated by Chanakya. And I couldn't resist but tell him that, do you know that the first army anywhere in the world led by a woman was in the Mauryan Empire, and at a time when the Kautilya was advising all the, the king and the ministers at the time. Forget that. Even the king, Chandragupta Maurya, was guarded by women, and they were known as Vishkanyas. So now tell me something. If he had any demeaning idea about women, or if he thought that women are the lesser beings, would he have appointed these women to protect the king at a time when, it was a patriarchal society? And we know this to be a fact because this finds mention not just in Kautilya's Arthashastra, but in various other texts which actually tend to criticize him, basically the Buddhist text. So please do not, for any instance, for a second, consider this Chanakya as works of Kautilya. They are not just misplaced, but often mistranslated. Now, what is this Chanakya, you may ask? So basically, these are collection of verses from a portion of Mahabharata called, which is often called as Vidura Niti. So the story goes that just before the war, the blind king Dhritarashtra was unable to sleep. So when you are not able to sleep, it was a time when you didn't have televisions, internet, to just distract your mind. So what the kings would do during such times is that they would, ask or have a discussion with people who had wisdom, who are wise. And Dhritarashtra considered Vidura to be a very wise person. So to entertain the blind king and also to try to instill in him some sense of justice, he started explaining him the conduct of Niti. And a significant portion of Chanakya Niti, which is very, very significantly, what can I say, important, is actually the works of Vidura and not Chanakya. So always bear this in mind. I can see a hand going up here. So please hold on to your questions. So once I'm done, I will take all the questions today. So there is one book which is definitely the work of Panchatantra, and it is written, written by Chanakya or Kautilya, and that book is Panchatantra of Vishnu Sharma. Now, Vishnu Sharma is none other than Chanakya or Kautilya. Now, this is my own personal finding. So many other scholars may as well find objection to it. I have explained this in a significant depth in my book, Essential Timeless Tales of a Wise Sage, Vishnu Sharma's Panchatantra Retold. It is available everywhere. And if you have a Kindle Unlimited version, you can even read it for free. So that Panchatantra is a real work of Kautilya. Now, why is Panchatantra written is another interesting story. Or why, Kautilya never gave his name to Panchatantra. Here is an important thing. All these greatest authors, like for example, the name that comes in Arthashastra, that is Pishuna, was not actually his real name. That is, and Kautilya himself says there is no idea who he was. Anonymity was considered as paramount by all these sages. They didn't want any recognition. They didn't want, like today, okay, like I'm an author. If I write a book, I will be very happy if I get I sell 1 million copies, or probably I get some literary awards or some coverage in the media. But these sages, they considered all this to be futile. So and because of their anonymity, and because they didn't have any expectation from the world, they were very close to the king, as we will see in the coming slides. The story goes that there was a king named Amarashakti. He had 3 dead sons, good for nothing. Amarashakti, the king, was growing old, and he was concerned as to what will happen to his kingdom without, this no competent successor in place. So he was very worried. Now, what happened is that, he asked all his counselors that what can be done about them. So everyone said that, listen, they are already 25, 26 years old. Nothing much could be done to them, because if you have to teach them, that it has to start with the grammar, then literature, then politics. It's going to take another 15 years. So it's going to, it's a done deal. There's no way you can teach them. However, one of his counselor named Sumanta suggests that he knows a Brahman, a non-Agarian Brahman, he's around 90 years old, and he has some interesting techniques to impart the political wisdom and knowledge in people, and probably he could help. So Amarashakti goes all the way to, to meet this non-Agarian Brahman along with his 3 sons. And the king declares, "Oh Brahman," okay, Brahman is essentially an intellectual. "If you can educate my sons in the ways of the world, in politics and diplomacy and leadership, I will give you 100 villages as a gift." So this Brahman laughs. He says, "King, I'm 90 years old, okay? I have neither the taste buds in my tongue, neither the energy to enjoy anything. What am I going to do with this 100 villages? I am having troubles walking from here to, a couple of paces. However, if I am unable to educate your sons on the path of knowledge and wisdom in 6 months' time, you can change my name to whatever you want." So Amarashakti was really fascinated. Okay. However, he was also a skeptic, so he doubted it. But then he said, "Fine, as you say," and he went. And the legend has it that in 6 months' time, all these 3 princes became sort of great statesmen in their own right. And Panchatantra is one of the oldest translated text from Vedic Sanskrit to even Farsi, the old Iranian language. And no matter in which part of the world you are, what language you speak, you most certainly will find a translation of Panchatantra in your language. And this Panchatantra was eventually the first book any person trying to understand the politics or trying to be an advisor to the king or anything, or even a military general was taught in Vedic Indian, in ancient India, at least until 1001 Anno Domini. Panchatantra is made of two words. Pancha meaning five, and Tantra means strategy. A lot of Vedic words are often misused and abused. Tantra is often suggested as something like, occult science or things like that. But in Vedic Sanskrit, Tantra are strategies. You need strategies in life to achieve something important. If you don't have the strategy or the right approach, you will most often lose. And in Panchatantra, there is no occult whatsoever. So you can be rest assured that Tantra is only strategy. Kautilya's Arthashastra is the most misunderstood, mistranslated, misused, and abused word. Now, why, you may ask? Often, Kautilya is, if you ask any Indian intellectual class or even the Westerners, who is Chanakya? Oh, he was Indian Machiavelli. Machiavelli, Niccolo Machiavelli, the author of The Prince, he lived around 16th century. Okay, Sun Tzu lived, 300 years after, Kautilya. So, how sensible is this translation? The Sun Tzu's Art of War is all about war. Okay, there's no peace. Niccolo Machiavelli's Prince is about deception, conniving, and doing literally anything to attain the positions of power. But is Kautilya's Arthashastra to do the same? That is a major concept in Vedic text. It starts all the way from the Vedas to Puranas to Vedas to Upanishads to Mahabharata to Ramayana until Arthashastra. And that word is called Arishad Vargas. So Arishad Vargas are made of three words. Ari meaning detrimental, Shad meaning six, and Vargas meaning qualities. So it is basically 6 detrimental qualities. And these 6 detrimental qualities are Kama or desire or lust, Krodha or anger, Lobha, greed, Moha, infatuation, Mada, ego, Matsarya, enmity. Any person who has this lust, anger, greed, infatuation, ego, and envy is defined by all the Vedic rishis as Rajyanarha. Now, you must understand, lust doesn't mean that you cannot copulate with a woman. It just means that you cannot copulate with someone else. Why? Because basically, one of the greatest reasons for conflicts is it's basically sex, okay, especially in the animal kingdom. So they suggested that, you limit it. So if, some of the kings had, 2-3 wives, but beyond that, it was banished for obvious reason during that time. Krodha or anger is devastating. If you are going to take any decision in life based on anger, rest be assured, you are going to regret that decisions. So anger is always devastating. Lobha or greed is, we have seen what mess it creates. You just need to go to every third world country and their rulers and see how their greed kills, the basic, it destroys the fabric of the society. It devastates civilizations. Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha. Moha is, extreme connection to a particular individual. We have seen nepotism. how people promote their own kith and kin to the positions of power just because they are related to them by blood. Okay. Mada, ego. Oh, I am great. I am the powerful. Nobody is better than me. That is ego. And literally every leader today, has some sort of an ego. And even the ego, which you try to show as not an ego, is considered as, mada or ego. Matsarya, envy. If you are going to be successful in life, and most people want to be successful because they want to be accepted by others, or probably if I make a lot of money, or if I get into the position of power, my people will start liking me, my people will start loving me. So, however, when you become successful, there's something called matsarya, envy. So if you have that, if you attract that envy, you are going to create for yourself too many troubles in your life. And those troubles are going to be so insurmountable that you will lose the focus on the things that you've got to do. And if you have the envy while in positions of power, you will misuse, obviously will misuse your position to do things that are diametrically opposite to your objectives. And if you look at Sun Tzu's Art of War, or Niccolo Machiavelli's Prince, they herald these qualities. They say that, oh, you need to be, you need to have, a sense of anger. You need to have vengeance. So all the qualities that are, that are almost explained as virtues in this text is considered as detrimental in the Vedic text, including Arthashastra. There is also, you will know why Chanakya, Kautilya, or his preceding rishis were better than these people, because in Prince, there is only one thing, or even in Art of War. It's directly to create conflicts. You just go on confrontations. You create confrontations. However, there is something called Dandaniti. How do you react, or how do you retaliate? You must understand, no matter who you are going to have some set of enemies. Kautilya's, there is a great sage called Bhartrahari. He says that deer, fish, and sages, they don't bother anyone. The deer just eats grass and survives. The fish lives in the water by itself. The sages, they don't bother anyone, they live in the forest. And yet, the deer is viciously pursued by the hunter. The fish is, wantonly, fished by the fishermen. And the evil people pursue the sages. So when you are in a position of threat, you need to retaliate. There is no doubts about that. Another abused concept is ahimsa. People say that, okay, if he's doing something to me, I shouldn't do something. If he slaps my right cheek, I need to give him a left cheek. That's not a Vedic concept in the first place. That is precisely adharma. Self-preservation is a fundamental right according to the Dharma Shastras, or the various books on the conduct. So when someone does something wrong to you, they say you need to follow the Dandaniti at a personal level as well as an organizational level. The Dandaniti has 4 options for you. The first one is Sam, or patience. So first, when somebody is doing something nasty, you try to be patient, understand what he's doing, and see if there is a way you can convince him out of it. You've got to do that in the first place. The second option is gift. See if you can give him something and ask him to be gone. Okay. The third one is danda, or punishment. Okay. You can just retaliate and you can see, if that shuts him up. But even if that doesn't happen, then comes the bheda, or, death or war. You can either kill that person, or either you can, wage a war on that person. And it was always the last, approach. Now, the Art of War and the Prince always speak about the death and war. Okay, it's always about the confrontations. It's always about killing. It's about scheming and things like that. Whereas in the Rajaneeti of the Vedic text, including Kautilya, you had three major options: Sam, Dam, Dand. And if they don't work, then you went for bait. It is impossible to understand Kautilya's Arthashastra without understanding the Vedic philosophy and wisdom. One of the reasons, there have been a lot of authors over the years who have tried to make a mountain out of the molehill out of Kautilya. Some people say that, oh, he is the greatest way person who changed the world. Okay, he dethroned the Nanda Empire and he brought up his own empire. That he is one of the greatest avenger of all times. Okay, the first thing what you need to know is that Kautilya, he didn't avenge the the king of Magadha for his own vicious end. Okay, so when you take a vengeance, you try to see your personal profit. Kautilya never held. There is no record whatsoever to prove that he was the prime minister in the in the cabinet of Chandragupta Maurya, the first Mauryan emperor. Okay, and he didn't ever say that anything like it is all about a dog eat dog world. He was a great proponent of peace. He wanted that to be a balanced peace, an avenue for people to pursue their dreams and to do good and to be good. And everywhere in his Arthashastra is an advanced Vedic art form. Now, if you have heard about yoga, Ayurveda, and Dhyana, they are the very fundamental foundations of Vedic knowledge. Okay, if you don't understand the precepts of yoga as a path, not just as an exercise or a gymnastic tradition, you cannot understand the Vedic principles. If you want to understand Arthashastra, you need to first learn what is called as Artha Sutras. Now, the Artha Sutras, for very strange reasons, are often printed at the end of Arthashastra, in all the recent available books. And these Artha Sutras, they are over 540 Artha Sutras. They are basically the axioms. And they are something like this: Sukhasya moolam dharmaha, dharmasya moolam arthaha, arthasya moolam rajyam, rajyasya moolam indriyopanigraha. Now, they are one-liners, and there is a series of one-liners. Now, he talks about Sukha, Dharma, Artha, Kama, and everything, but he never explains it. Now, why doesn't he explain? Simply because he expected everyone to know the preceding knowledge, the preceding basic knowledge that was taught in the Vedic era, in the Vedic text, before they come to Arthashastra. For example, if you are going to be studying a master's degree or something, okay, they are not going to teach you the basic formulas. There's a given assumption that you have already studied it. So if you have not understood the Vedic knowledge and wisdom in the right perspective, believe me, there is no way you can understand the Kautilya's Arthashastra. I'll give you one great thing. Everyone says that, oh, he's a good person or he's a bad person. Okay. In the modern context, we often hear this say that one man's hero is another man's terrorist. Okay, one man's terrorist is another's freedom fighter. So basically, a person is good to one person is not good to another. What is a definition of a good or a bad person? Okay. For this, I need to tell you a story from the Panchatantra, which is not really available everywhere. Interestingly, some of the people have manipulated the story a little bit and without any credits to Panchatantra. The story is about two sons of a drunkard and a fiend. A long time ago, there was a man. He was a drunk person. He was always drunk and he was a fiend. Absolutely good for nothing. Every day, he would beat his wife, beat his children, never give them what they require, and they make their life a hell. One day, one of his relatives came. He saw what was happening and he felt very bad. Okay, so he just left. 20 years passed. The drunkard died. One day, this same person who had visited them 20 years ago He went to one of the first, the same place, and he realized that these children have parted ways and they're living separately and had their own family. So first, he went to the eldest son's house, and he used to drink like his father, beat like his father, and he was literally a carbon copy of his father. And he asked him, "Why are you like this?" So he said, "My father was a drunkard and a fiend. What else do you expect me to be? I'm his son after all, right?" So he says, "Okay." And then he went to the house of the second son. And he saw that the second son was absolutely fabulous with his, kids. His wife loved him. The children adored him. He did everything he could do to make sure that they had a decent life. Now this person asked him, "Why are you like this?" So the second son replied, "My father always beat me up. Okay. He never gave me anything decent. Okay. And I suffered. Now, the way I suffered, do I want someone else to suffer? I don't want to do that." And he felt good. At the end of the story, Vishnu Sharma says, good or bad is not by suffering. Just because somebody is suffering in the world doesn't make him good. It is his action. If a person says that, okay, I have suffered enough, let others don't suffer. Let me do everything in my capacity to make sure that I create a better life for them. Okay, and they not be there his own relatives, but for the for the good of the world. That person is a good person. And any person who says that, oh, I have suffered, so let them also suffer, that person is a bad person. This beautiful definition of a good and bad is found nowhere else but in Vedic text. And he doesn't say that you are a good person just because if you follow my religion, or if you are of my caste or my community or of my geography or my nation or anything. That it is, a goodness is just the ability of a person to suffer the worst and yet try to do everything to make sure that others don't suffer. Kautilya's Arthashastra, this is a very out of the world thing, and I'll prove it that it is true. Kautilya's Arthashastra presents the truest democratic, secular form of political administration. Now, the most of the people consider that, okay, because he was a Vedic guy, okay, and he was a Brahmin, okay, so he must have promoted his own religion. First of all, there's no mention of the word Hindu in any of the Vedic text. No Vedic sage ever said that a word called Hindu. They might have not even heard of that word. Maybe Kautilya's time he might have heard of from the advancing the Greek army of the Alexander, but there's no other mention of that. There's no mention of the word Hindu at all. And here's a funny thing for you. The king he established on throne, Chandragupta Maurya, was a Jain. And the Jains have principal disagreements with the Vedic, knowledge. There are various precepts of the Vedic knowledge which are not agreeable to the Jain people. The Jain rishis, they're also called rishis or munis, okay? They do not agree with the Vedic precepts. And yet, this Kautilya, using the Vedic knowledge, installed a Jain, king on the throne. Isn't that in a truest way, a secular form? Except for Bindusara, there were three notable kings in the Mauryan Empire. First was Chandragupta Maurya, second was Bindusara, and third was Ashoka. Now, Bindusara was also a Buddhist, and Ashoka was born a Buddhist. There is a myth that, Ashoka fought the Kalinga war and then suddenly saw the bloodshed and then he became Buddhist. That is downright false. Okay, so Ashoka was always a Buddhist. Not even one of the kings in the Mauryan Empire, even if you please verify these facts for yourself, were actually the Vedantins or the Sanatanis or so-called Hindus. And it was democratic. Now, today the democracy is possible because of advancement of technology. You can print ballot papers and you can put it in a box, you can count them, so it was easier. There were identity documents which you could print, you can identify a specific individual, and that is the reason why the democracy was possible. The advancement of technology was not really advanced during the time of Kautilya. You didn't have proper papers. Okay, you had the papyrus leaves which hardly lived for more than 10 or 15 years during that time. That too if they were well preserved, and it was impossible to preserve them. This, what you're seeing right now on the screen, please take a very close look at this. This was the system of administration during the time of Kautilya or Chanakya. First, there is Rajyam, the government. The government had three parallel powers. The first one was Rajan, or the ruler. The second one was Mahamatya, or Mahamantri, or prime minister. The third one was Mantri Parishad, or council of ministers. Unlike in the Western societies where you have the king and ministers serving him, here the king was accountable to the minister as well as prime minister, and they were all accountable to each other. The generals were well below it, and the army was always divided into 5 categories. Okay, even though they were of the, there was not many, there was no air force, and naval was limited during that time. The armies were divided into 5 categories to ensure that there was no revolt in the army. And if there was any problem with, with these they had to work it out with discussions. And if they couldn't have discussions, then there was a fourth factor, and he was Rajaguru. So Rajaguru is a very funny thing. It's a very interesting concept. A king, being a king is a profession. Being a prime minister is a profession. Serving as a council of a minister is also a profession. But Rajaguru is no profession. The Rajaguru had no salary. He never lived in the kingdom. He always lived outside. Okay? And he was the person who was called in if all these 3 major foundations of the empire, that is Rajan, Mahamatya, Mantri Parishad, or the ruler, prime minister, or the council of ministers, had some issues. There are various stories in the across the Vedic literature where when these Rajagurus came, and they were essentially the rishis who lived as hermits in forest, the king would, step down from the throne, touch his feet, and make him sit on the throne. Okay, and he would give the justice from that point of view, and he would see that there's no conflict whatsoever, and he would go back. They were, in real sense, called the true power makers, the king makers. And these Rajgurus had no selfishness whatsoever. They were apart, above and beyond. There are also some Rajgurus, like in the case of Vikramaditya, one of the greatest kings, heralded kings in the Vedic era, was a king named Vikramaditya of Ujjaini. And his Rajaguru was his elder brother, who was also a king, and his name was Bhartrahari. Bhartrahari was one of the benevolent king, and one day, for some reasons, he relinquished his throne and he became a hermit. And once he left the, the entire kingdom and the palace, he never came back into it. So anytime Vikramaditya had some dilemma, he had some problem with this running his government, he would go to Bhartrahari to ask for counsel. And these Raja and Rajaguru concepts are across the Vedic text. For example, there was a king named Bharata. India, in Indian language, okay, in Hindi, including Kannada and Telugu and Tamil, it is always referred to as Bharata. Bharata was a name given to this subcontinent during the Vedic times because of a king named Bharata. And Bharata's Rajaguru was Bharadwaja, the original author, the originator of Arthashastra. In Valmiki's Ramayana, for Dasharatha and Rama, there was Vasishta. For Vikramaditya, as I just told you, there was Bhartrahari. Shivaji Maharaj, one of the, the greatest kings of this land has ever seen, he had Samarth Ramdas. Hakka and Bukka, one of the most benevolent, magnificent empire in the South India, to have ever ruled South India, and it also eventually tried to conquer the, the rest of the India, but didn't, hold on to it for a long time. It was called Vijayanagara. Its founder, Hakka and Bukka, had Vidyaranya. And Vidyaranya was the name of a person or a sage named Madhvacharya. And Madhvacharya he was not the Madhvacharya, the founder of Advaita, but this Madhvacharya was actually a disciple of the Shankara tradition. And he was the seer of the Sringeri Sharada Peeth. So for thousands of years, every great king had greater than life individuals to, to mentor them, to guide them. And they were called as Rajgurus. Let me tell you an interesting story, which will give you a clear idea about the idea of greatness in the Vedic times, what it required to be great. In the Vedic period, anyone to be called as a great, or the Vedic Sanskrit word for this is called Mahantam. The Mahantam had two words, Mam or self, Hantam, end. So to become great, you had to quell your selfish tendencies. And if you are unable to quell your selfish tendencies, you are nowhere even close to Mahantam. And Bharata was called Mahantam because although he had 3 wives and 3 sons from each of them, that is 9 sons, when he became old, he had, he interviewed all his 9 sons. And he found out that none of them were good enough to succeed him. He was concerned, he said, like, if I'm going to give my throne to these dunderheads, what was going to happen to my people? They are going to suffer. What am I going to do? So he was absolutely restless. He couldn't sleep for many days. And he tried seeking the counsel from the ministers, his friends, family. Everybody said that you have no choice but to select from one of your 9 sons. He was not convinced. So he finally went to the ashram of Bharadwaj, his guru. The ashram is not like the ashrams of today. It's not a multi-million-dollar complex. It was basically a simple hut somewhere in the middle of the forest where there is not even roads and no amenities whatsoever. It was a very humble abode of all these rishis. So he went there and he explained his dilemma to his Rajguru, to Bharadwaj. And he said, Guru, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. My sons, I don't think they are capable of, they are up to the mark to, to take care of my people. So Bharadwaj said, look, son, don't worry. Just take some rest, live here for a couple of days, okay? Meditate. You will find the answer for yourself. And you must know that you are a king. And when you are in a dilemma, it is much better that you find the solution to your problem yourself instead of someone else giving you a solution. So Bharata agreed and he started living in the ashram. There in the ashram, a couple of students had come to study from the Bharadwaja. And there was a guy named Bhumanyu who was from his kingdom. And he took a liking for this guy because he was very intelligent. And when he asked him the same question he had asked for all the 9 sons, he answered them all very well. And then finally, he consulted with Bharadwaj, his Rajguru. And Bharadwaj said, that is your decision and only you can take it. And whatever decisions you take, I'm pretty sure you will do it right. So he took Bhumanyu along with him and he declared in the entire court, in front of all the ministers, relatives, friends, everyone, that Bhumanyu will be his successor. Everybody was shocked. Are you gone nuts, O king? They said. And he said, why? You have 9 sons, okay? So why are you not, and why are you getting this some person, you don't know who he is, where he's come from, okay? How can you give him the position of power? So he said that I have found out everything I needed to know about this young chap, whom I'm going to name my successor. I've even, tested his ability on the various dynamics of the politics. And I think he is very, very competent. And as far as your idea of my 9 children, let me tell you this. This is the beautiful quote that I want to, I hope if you can remember this. He says, Janita chopaneta cha yastu vidyam prayasthati, annadata bhayatrata cha panchayate pitarasmata. Janita, one who gives you birth. Chopaneta, one who gives you the yajñopavit. there's a thread ceremony, which is like a coming of age, a ceremony which was held for boys as well as girls in the Vedic time before they were sent to education. Annadata, one who gives you food, one feeds you. Bhayatrata, one who protects you, a king. Panchayate Pritaraspata. So given that I am not his father by, by the biological means, I am father by all four ways because he's a subject. And for a king, all his subjects are his children. The fact that a king as powerful as Bharata refused his throne to his own sons because they were incompetent, and he gave it to a person just because he was confirmed that he was competent, made him Mahan or great. So every time we talk about the dynastic legacies everywhere in the world and saying that, and that it's a great dynasty and everything. Of course, the dynastic has its own tradition, but the Indian kings often have given their power to people who are more deserving. There was no shred of, of any nepotism in that, mada or moha in them. These were the standards by which the Vedic kings were judged. There is one beautiful quote in Arthashastra. They say that it was written by Bharadwaj. He says, Tadaham Sampravakshami Lokanam Hitakamyaya Yena Vijnana Matrena. Therefore, tell this knowledge for the universal region. There is no creed, nothing. It is for the universal welfare that I write this knowledge. Yena Vijnana Matrena. Upon realizing which wisdom, Sarva Jnatvam Pradiyate, you will have no hurdles in your life. Although there is a other naive interpretation of this verse, this is by far the very concrete definition and translation of it. And the most important objective of this Arthashastra is Raja Dharmini Dharmishtaha Papaha Papo Same Sama Rajana Manuvartante Yatha Raja Tatha Praja. If the ruler, the Raja or the ruler is Dharmini, he follows Dharma, he follows good conduct. Dharmishtaha means his people too will be like that. Papaha Papo, if he does sin, the other people will also sin. The sin is also a different definition here. Same Sama. Rajana Manuvartante, just like the king will be his subjects. Yatha Raja, Tatha Praja. And why he tells this is to tell the rulers that behave. If you don't behave, everyone, you are going to break the standards of conduct, and there will be a chaos in the world. The accountability was one of the most important aspects of Vedic knowledge, especially to the rulers. So as some people think that, okay, if you are a king, you can do anything. Of course, the monarchs have limited power in most part of the world, but there are other politicians who have limited accountability. In Vedic text, the accountability was supreme. And you can know this beautifully from this story I'm going to tell you about, about Bhumanyu, the person who succeeded Bharata, and his Rajguru, Bharadwaja. So one day, before he became the king, the Bhumanyu had to travel the entire world, not just his kingdom, but every kingdom. That was one of the basic precepts of the Vedic knowledge, that before you take a position of power, you need to observe the world firsthand. So there's no first class air travel. Of course, there was no travel at all. You have to travel on foot across all the plains. So there is a beautiful saying, okay, which is very apt in this regard. And that saying goes that Vidvatvancha nripatvancha naiva tulya kadachana Swadeshe pujyate raja vidvan sarvatra pujyate. Vidvatvancha nripatvancha. Vidvatvam is the intellect, the knowledge and the wisdom. Nripatvam, basically the power, the king, the kingdom, the rule, the position and everything. There is no comparison between the two, he says. Naiva tulya kadachana. Swadeshe pujyate raja. A king is respected, but only in his fiefdom. Vidwan sarvatra pujyate. But an intellect or a knowledgeable or a wise person is respected everywhere. Therefore, it was sought from all this Yuvaraj or the princess that before you take the position of power, you go across the world, observe life, see things, try to share your wisdom, learn from people, educate them if you can, and then you come and see so that you have the grip on reality. You know what people are facing. So Bhumanyu was on a voyage, and he went to a place called Kandahar, or so-called Gandhar. The Gandhar is in modern-day Afghanistan, and it is called Kandahar. In Gandhar, he was sleeping outside some open place or inn, and in the middle of the night, he found that the local police officer was interrogating some individual, some local people out there. And he said, like, why did why did you steal this 1,000 gold coins? Where did you get it from? And a person said, sir, please forgive me. I'm not a thief. Okay, I had to do this because I had no option. And he said, what do you mean you had no option? Sir, my father was, when I was 15 years old, 5 years old, my father passed away. And it happened such that when he passed away, my mother was widow and she had nothing. Somehow she was able to give these people a small room in a house to live in for the travelers to live there and have some food, basically a bread and breakfast. And one day it happened that one day, when she had given some food to a person who was living there, a lizard fell into it and he died. And the king declared that, if you don't bring me, this 1,000 gold coins, she will die. So I had no option but to literally, steal. So then the officer counted the coin and he found that there's one coin more. So the officer said that, okay, I will take this coin for myself. Rest 1,000 coin you can take. And he went. And Bhumanyu thought, what a corrupt bloody officer he is. So when he returned to his place, he met Bharadwaj and he narrated the story. And Bharadwaj said, in front of Bharata, the mistake, the person who is accountable here is not the police officer, never the boy. Because boy had no option. He had to save his mother, so he did what he had to do. It was the unjust punishment of the king. When a king metes out unjust punishment, it only leads to more crime. And so therefore, the king has to be held accountable for this. This is the standard of rulers set by the Vedic rishis. Now let me come to this very interesting topic of Kootaneethi. I have read fairly a good amount of books on global diplomacy, politics, and I have been privileged to meet some of the brightest political minds of our times. However, I have barely come across any book or any individual who has any knowledge which can come even very close to this concept of this Kootaneethi. The Kootaneethi has two words, Kuta, which actually comes from another word called Kutila or covert, and Neeti means conduct. In simple words, it is the art of deception through manipulation of perception. Let me repeat this. It is the art of deception through manipulation of perception. For a conduct to be in accordance with Kootaneethi, it must conform to the standards of Dharma and Neeti. So if you are doing something unto someone else, which you don't want the others to do it to you, then that is not Kootaneethi. That is basically, what can I say? That is adharmic. That is against Dharma. So Kootaneethi is about using the perceived advantage of an adversary against him. Now consider this. Significant part of the developing world is full of dictators. They come to the position of power. the world government suck up to them for utilizing the resources of the country, because it is easier to exploit the resources of a country when there's a corrupt person. Just pay him whatever he asks for and be done with it. And in turn, he starts persecuting his own subjects. Absolute power, a power unchecked, is always disastrous. It has catastrophic consequences in life. What do you do with them? How do you, as a person being subjugated under such ruthless rulers, how are you going to liberate yourself and the people? There is not one text available anywhere in the world which gives any clear idea about it, except this Arthashastra and other Vedic Shastras. And that knowledge is called Kootaneethi. So Kootaneethi is a part of Veda. It's a part of Dandaneethi. As I already said, Sama, Dam, Dandabhed. Sam, patience. Dam, gifts. Dand, punishment. So without doing, even after doing these these three things, you are able to achieve nothing. Then you have the Bhed. So Bhed is essentially, ultimate resort. You go the worst way, war. But if you are going to go for a war, a lot of innocents are going to die. So what do? In such cases, you try to use a Kootaneethi to create a situation for the person in power that he has no option but to abdicate or to get rid of him, either one of the two. A person specializing in Kootaneethi is called Kootaneethijna. So basically, jna means jnatva. So a person, a jnani. So a jnani is a person who is knowledgeable. So a person who understands this Kootaneethi is called Kootaneethijna. And the objective of the Kootaneethi is to nullify or minimize the collateral damage. You make sure that only the person who is creating the problem is punished and neutralized, and not other people. So Kootaneethi is also considered as the paramount knowledge stream of Arthashastra. It is also secretive in a discreet sense. So basically, the knowledge of Kootaneethi hides in plain sight. So if anyone has read Arthashastra, and if he says that he heard that word once or twice, but he found nothing about it, it's just because all this knowledge are actually, pursued better through constant contemplation, going through it, what time and again. So that is the primary reason why the ancient Vedic knowledge had three ways. So anything to be called as an education. Now, in today's world, what happens is, if you go to a school, you go to a course, you read something, you memorize it, you give an exam, you get a certificate, and that certificate is equal to education. In the Vedic era, there was no certification whatsoever. There were no, to print a certificate, you needed to have something, and there were no, there were not even papers during that time. So there was 3 steps to it, and that 3 steps were Shravan, listening, Manan. Shravan also means listening, observing, understanding. Manan, or memorizing without whatever you have seen, heard, or pursued, without manipulation. And Nididhyasana, constant contemplation of what you have seen. So you may have, for example, everyone knows that in economy has an upward and downward trend. Anything that has gone up has to come down. It's cyclic. And whatever has gone down, it has to go up. It's like an ECG machine. It goes up, down, up, down. Now, when the economy is in a downward spiral, as it is going today, most people will say that, oh, it's a bad time, it's very bad, you don't know what to do with it. However, if you are smart enough, you can understand what is exactly going down. And also, if you have the right knowledge, you can predict when it is going to go up. And at that particular time, what you can actually do is that you can pick up the right stocks if you're in the market, or if you are having in a trade, you can identify the raw materials and hold on to it. So when the market is in an upward spiral, you can unleash your products and your shares into the market, and you can get a brighter price. So when you have the right knowledge, you don't feel discouraged. You don't feel frustrated. You won't say that, oh, I just lost my job, my life is gone. Oh, what will I do? My business is not doing well. I have to pay, loans and things like that. Basically, the knowledge is anything, the wisdom is anything that gives you the ability to get into it. And the wisdom cannot be achieved just by reading something. You need to, there's a difference between knowing. So when you read something, when you get a certificate on management or doctor or anything, you just get a certificate. You know that, okay, if something like this happens, this is what you need to do. But you will not be able to really comprehend it until you have done it. So that is from knowing to understanding, then you understand it. And then that is realizing. When you have a realization, you will find more ways than you have already read, okay? And you'll be able to invent better things up there. So it is only when you understand the concepts that are given in the Vedic knowledge, which is followed by the Arthashastra, and then you constantly contemplate and practice this knowledge in your day-to-day life, that you will be able to see the real knowledge, you will be able to truly understand this concept of Kootaneethi. According to this Kootaneethi, no individual or group are beyond the realms of Dharma. That is, if somebody is, even if an individual is breaking the, the Dharma or the nature of good, of the standard conduct for welfare of all, or even a group, okay, there is no right for these groups to survive. And therefore, if Dharma is transgressed or abused, it becomes the obligation of the person, custodian of the Kootaneethi, to do everything in one's power to establish Dharma. So once somebody has understood this Kootaneethi, and believe me, according to this rishis, a person who is having a Kootaneethi will be able to uproot anyone. Kautilya says that he was able to uproot Dhanananda simply because he was able to understand Kootaneethi. And he integrated, and you must understand, the Dhanananda or the Nanda Empire was only a small portion of the empire which the Mauryas created. And the Mauryan Empire was all the way from Afghanistan in the west to Burma and Myanmar in the east, and from Kashmir to the north to all the way until modern day Karnataka and the tip of Karnataka in the south. And it was a time when there was no communication signal, and yet he integrated this all empire without many wars. There is no evidence anywhere to suggest that the Mauryan Empire, took his emperor, took his army, and went on conquering the kingdom. The entire India was integrated into a unified force, a unified kingdom of Mauryas by the sheer application of this Kootaneethi. According to Vyasa's Mahabharata, and remember, the Kootaneethi doesn't just appear in Arthashastra, but it also appears in Vyasa's Mahabharata. And Vyasa describes Krishna as the greatest Kootaneethi. There are two things about Krishna in Vyasa's Mahabharata you must know. In the battlefield, okay, most people who have read Bhagavad Gita, in Bhagavad Gita, the Krishna always says that, okay, Arjuna, pick up, make war, stand for your right, do what is right and everything. I have always held that you cannot understand Krishna by Bhagavad Gita. If you want to understand Krishna by Bhagavad Gita, it is going to be an incomplete Krishna, because before that war, Krishna did literally everything in his power to make sure that there is no need for a war. He even went to Suyodhana, or so-called Duryodhana, and said that give me 5 villages to my cousins, Pandavas, and let's be done with it. And it was Duryodhana who said that I'm not even, forget 5 villages, I'm not even going to give Pandavas 1 square inch to, to hit a nail. And when he was that adamant and everyone was following him, he had no option but to go for a war. And in the war, the Pandavas had the weakest army in comparison to Kauravas. Krishna's own army, his own people were fighting against him in the battlefield. So, just imagine that situation. And with such a little thing, in his thing, he won the war for the Pandavas, even without raising a single, a chakra or even any of the weapons. That is the power of Kootaneethi. The another thing that Krishna's early life in Vyasa's Mahabharata teaches is that there's a one word they always use for Krishna. It's called ranchod. So ranchod could actually be understood in any other language as an abuse, because ranchod means one who leaves the battlefield. Okay, so there is a story of Shishupala, who came on attacking Krishna, 99 times. Okay, and every time he came, the army, grew bigger. He just wanted to kill Krishna and devastate his place of Dwaraka. So what Krishna did is that every time he would know that, Shishupala is coming, he would simply ask his people to pack up their bags and go on, on some good place for a outing or tour or something. So there was nothing to fight, at that time. And those were not the times when you had a supply chain or anything. So the armies had to return. So when the armies were bored with it, then he would come back, to his own place and he'd lead a good life. He defeated Shishupala practically by exhausting him. He had the powerful army. So when he was powerful, he decided there's no point in fighting him and losing the battle. Rather, live to fight another day. Tactical withdrawal. So Krishna is considered as one of the greatest Kootanitijna by Vyasa. Now, while Rajaneeti, Mantri, and Tantri are professions, Kootanitijna was not a profession. You can't say that, oh, I'm a Kootanitijna and so I'm going to come to you, you give me a fees or you give me a prize or something. There's no way out. The king had his remuneration, the mantris were paid a salary. There's also called tantris. So tantris are a very little known people and they were always hidden for all good reasons. So tantris were the people who would devise sophisticated plans for the king to ensure that there is peace in the land. So imagine there is a solid uprising, okay? If there is an uprising in any of the place, they will try to sabotage that uprising by sending in the brute force of the police. So during those Kautilya's era, they wouldn't do that. There were 1,001 methods, which some of which is enumerated in Arthashastra, which speaks about how to quell an uprising without bloodshed, how to get rid of a dangerous minister scheming, how to find out, anticipate who could scheme, and if he does scheme, how to handle him well. So there's an amazing number of knowledge about it. So Tantri were, are another good topic, to even write a book or, conduct multiple webinars. So Kootanitijna were not paid. So if they were not paid, how did they live? Shukracharya says, Yugante prachalate meruhu, kalpante saptasagara, sadava, Kritajna, Kootanitijna pratipannarthana, nachalanti te kadachana. What he means is that there may be the worst of time, there may be a flood, there may be natural calamity, there may be hundreds of things that may happen around the world. But if a Kootanitijna so decides to achieve something, none of this will come to bother him. So it is a poetic language, of course, but it says that, how revered they were. Krishna in Vyasa's Mahabharata suggests, Krite pratikritam kuryat, himsena pratihimsanam, tava dosho na patati, dushte dushtam samacharet. Krite pratikritam kuryat. If somebody is nice to you, be more nice to him. If somebody is himsena pratihimsanam, if somebody is hurting you, retaliate fiercely. Tava dosho na patati. There is no wrong, in retaliation. Dushte dushtam samachare. If somebody fights you with the, without a specific law or moral standards, you need to let go your moral standards to fight these people. Parashara suggests, Yasya krityam na jananti, mantram va mantritam pare, kritamevasya hi jananti, sa eva Kootanitijno uchyate. If there is a person whose intent or his objectives are unknown to anyone, and they are known only when he achieves something, okay, for the global welfare, universal welfare, of course. That person is Kootaneethi. What he's trying to say in simple words is that it is totally impossible to comprehend the qualities of Kootaneethi. Neither the teachings of Rajaneeti nor Kootaneethi can be misused or abused without severe personal consequences. There's a warning which Kautilya says that if you do anything for your selfishness, that is bad. Okay, if anywhere, if you do anything with a trace of arishad vargas, kama, krodha, lust, anger, greed, infatuation, ego, and envy, then you are a bad person. And if you're doing anything for yourself, a vicious interest, then anything that you do is bad. Okay, and there will be personal consequences. There is a beautiful story I would like to recollect in this aspect, and it comes from a work called Simhasana Dvatrimshika. So Simhasana Dvatrimshika literally translates to 32 tales of throne. The throne is the chair on which the king sits. And this was the throne of Vikramaditya. So Vikramaditya is considered as one of the greatest kings ever lived. And he is great not because, just like Alexander, he conquered the entire world, killing people, creating sabotages or anything. But he created an avenue for people to understand, have access to knowledge, do good things, and serve and live in peace. So there's a great mythical story about his throne, and his throne had 32 steps, and in each of the steps there was an idol or a statue of a apsara or a celestial nymph. So one day after he died, his throne was not to be found at all. So one day another king from Ujjain, Bhojaraja, who was equally great, not equally great, less equally great according to the story, he found that throne. And he got that throne and he got installed it in his grand hall. And he found a nice auspicious day to ascend the throne. So when he was about to ascend the throne, one of the the celestial nymphs in the form of this statue came to life, and she said, "O Bhojaraja, this throne belonged to the great Vikramaditya. He was a great king who achieved great feats, and he has helped a lot of people across his lifetime. Okay? To sit on this throne, you must be equally great. Are you great?" He said. So Bhojaraja, said that, "Yes, I feed 2,000 Brahmins. I feed the people. I have the greatest thing. I have done this. I have done that." He started boasting. And the nymph and the statue said, "A person who is great never calls himself great. You are undeserving of this throne. Now be gone." So there are other stories, more stories which are equally more fascinating, but they're going to take a lot of time, so I'll stop it out here. So now let us start our question and answer sessions. So do we have, okay, so can you ask me some questions here? Okay, thank you for all your good wishes out here. Okay, so Rohan Mahajan says, who is the author of Chanakya Niti? As I said, it is a collection of and mistranslation of a lot of work, including but not limited to Vidura Niti, Shukra Niti, and there is also something called as Parashara Niti. And the translations are totally not up to the mark. Is the session recorded? Yes, it is recorded. So anybody would want to raise a hand to ask a question? I'll be more happy to give you the. Okay, here we are. Hello, Sandeep. Namaste. Can you hear me? One second.
Hello.
Yeah.
Sir, am I audible?
Very much audible, Sandeep.
So my doubt is how to choose a guru.
Guru, okay. So there is actually an article I have written. You can read it again if you want. It is about the guru. The word guru has two words, gu, that is ignorance, and ru, that is dispelling. So anyone who can dispel your ignorance is a guru. There is one nice story about a person called Yadu. Yadu was actually a king. And one day he got frustrated with his life. His wives were, creating him a lot of irritation and troubles. It was frustrating. So he got basically frustrated with life and he went into the forest. And in the forest, he met a person called Avaduta Dattatreya. Okay. And during the conversation, Yadu was very fascinated. Yadu said, will you be my guru? So Dattatreya literally started laughing. He said, why do you want me to be a guru? Okay. So he said, no, because to know something in life, you need a guru, right? He said, yes, but not one guru, he said. So in that story, if you read, he mentions 27 gurus or 24 gurus, I guess. And those gurus are everything, basically the earth, sun. He says that, then he says about water. He says, I'll learn from the water, to quench everyone's thirst and to live at the lowest, with having a very low key profile. So he mentions everything, including a prostitute. Okay. So if you want to have access to knowledge, if your reason for wanting a guru is to seek a sense of peace, then the best way to do that is to have an open mind, is to be open to knowledge from all. Even the Vedas says that, Ano Bhadra Kritavo Yantu Vishvata, let the knowledge come from from every part of the universe, they say. So just having one guru will, in today's world, you may have problem with the other gurus out there. So it is like creating a clan system. So I'm not in favor of that guru system, for that.
Yeah.
I hope I've answered your questions.
Yeah, you have answered my question. Thank you.
Sure, thank you so much. Who's the next? Okay. Okay, so Pragati Singh, hello to talk. Hi, Pragati.
Hi, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you.
Right. So, sir, my question was that is it still worth reading books like PANCHA and Arthashastra in today's life? Like, is it still relevant in today's date?
Okay, so there are four aspects in knowledge when in education, according to the Vedic rishis, and these are data, information, knowledge, and wisdom. Now, data, information, and knowledge are called jnanas, okay, and they are time sensitive. So, if you ask who is the Prime Minister of India, we can say without any confidence that it is Narendra Modi. It is true, but it is true only until for, let's say, another 5 years or another 10 years or whatever. So someday, at least he will not be the Prime Minister in 2090 or anything. So that is not knowledge. That is a time-sensitive information. So if you are confusing the data, the information, then they are time-sensitive. There's no relevance in that. So Arthashastra, most people today read to understand the kind of administration there was during those, during those times. What kind of people there were, what kind of, how the administration system gone and things like that. Those aspects of Arthashastra are no more useful. They may give us some perspective, yes, but they are of no use. What is of use is aspects like, the concept of mana, the mind. How much has the human mind changed? If you look at 1,000 years and if you change, fast forward to modern day, everything is still the same. We have, anger, lust, anger, greed, infatuation, ego, and envy. They are same. The human mind has not evolved at all. The Kautilya's Arthashastra, Vishnu Sharma's Panchatantra, they concern themselves with the mind and aspects of mind like leadership. They have not changed. On the contrary, if you look at them, They have more information what you have against other people, like modern education. Like when I started Vedic management, a lot of people started asking me, why do you want to get into Vedic? It's a bygone thing. So I just answered them. The modern education system, so-called modern management theories, they were a product of 17th century, post-Renaissance and the Industrial Revolution. And now just look at it, the Industrial Revolution had something like line production and things like that. And our education that we are following today is a direct representation of that needs and demands of the industry during that time. Now, that is the reason why, even if you have the best degrees, you don't know what to do at the time of recessions that is already hit us right now. So to answer your questions, a great many aspects of these texts are not relevant, but the aspects with respect to the leadership, management, politics, and wisdom, they are bang on. That is, I can assure you, if you just read all my articles, and you must, I know I need to tell you this, anything I write, they are not my original ideas. They were the works of these great rishis. So it's so brilliant, and a lot many aspects even fascinate some of the brightest professors even today. I hope I have answered your question.
Yes, sir, and I have a follow-up on that. So can I?
Sure, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I wanted to say that since these books specifically talk of subjects such as leadership and diplomacy, so as youngsters in today's generation, if we want to follow the path of Dharma, so what is it that we can do to, learn the right path? Because we don't have that kind of exposure to that kind of knowledge today. So is it something that we should read, or some person that we should listen to, something specific?
Okay, so what you are asking is, how can you, basically your question is about how can you benefit from this knowledge, correct?
Right, kind of.
Okay, so let me tell you a simple thing. In your education system today, you are being compared, right? There's a comparison everywhere. How much marks
Right.
you have got, how much marks he has got. And even after getting the best marks, even the best, ranks or whatever you get, do you have any assurance of a life of peace? Do you achieve peace in your life? Is there any guarantee that you'll achieve peace?
No, sir.
Okay. So on the contrary, there is one assurance that all the Vedic rishis says. They say that if you understand this, okay, actually Vyasa says it in a nice way. If you understand Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, there's a Purushartha, the four things in life. And Dharma in very simple way is not doing to others what you don't want others to do to you, and trying to do everything good, in some ways. And all this story and all these Dharma Shastras are essentially stories. I would just say that, just read these stories. That's most of the, I've given some of the stories on my website. You must have at least 50, 60 stories there. Find some time, read it, see if it makes difference. The one thing, all the Vedic Rishi says is that everyone has to find his own path, and you cannot copy someone else's path. So what is good for a goose is not good for a gander. So that is why there's a lot of complex thing. But you need to, what I would suggest is just start reading, read everyone and start questioning. So just when you start questioning, you will get your answer. Maybe not today, maybe not in 1 or 2 years, but someday you will get it there. I hope this was helpful.
Yes, sir, it was. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so hello, Siddharth.
Hello, Mahesh sir. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am also good, sir. It was really nice listening to you, and your knowledge and your vibrancy towards the Vedic Dharma is really plausible, sir. Thank you for sharing it with us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so I am always I always prefer to ask right questions to whatever things, and I was always anti-establishment. So whatever things people say ki you have to do it this way, so I used to always think, why are you having a stereotype in your mind? And there are several ways of doing it. Okay, So same way the current constitution of India, what I feel is when such like such laws and rules were applied and tried and tested in like maybe thousands of years ago, and we are having like like it's a whitewashed technique or a whitewashed principle. Okay, so this principle has been tried and tested several times, and you apply it in any, like it doesn't matter in which yuga, but if you're applying, so the result has to come like the way it has to come. Okay, so why was such important laws and such important neetis and books, when was it, when did it start its destruction, and when was such Chanakya Neeti and such laws used for the last time?
Okay. Uh, in my, according to my observation, the Mauryan Emperor Ashoka, okay, who had very anti-Vedic views. The early form of Buddhism had a very anti-Vedic views, and he started changing the establishment, the Mantri Parishad, the powers that were enjoyed by Mahamantri and Mantri Parishad were taken out, and there was no system of Rajguru was there. So he undid a lot of things what Kautilya had established in Maurya, and from there on, if you see, the Mauryan Empire began its collapse. However, uh, the knowledge of the Arthashastra went on until 1001 Anno Domini. That was when, if you look at the kingdoms in Kashmir, there's a beautiful story you must read sometimes about a Kashmiri queen named Didda. Okay, she was absolutely called ruthless, quote unquote. But if you look at her, significantly, she followed the precepts of the Kautilya's, Niti and Rajaneeti and Kootaneethi. So I think around 1001 Anno Domini, and the queen like Didda, she resisted the invasions of the Arabs for a long time, and it was a very powerful kingdom, of hers. So once this kingdom collapsed, and eventually, we had this, the slave dynasty, the Lodi dynasty, and everything. That was a time from when I think, the knowledge of the Shastras, were done. However, there were some kings like, Akbar, who had some inclinations for this, but it was not largely implemented because he had an obligation to go with this jizya, his own religious law and things like that. So I think it started, the implementation of the knowledge stopped as we know it around 1001 Domini, after the Kashmiri dynasties, started collapsing.
Okay, sir.
I hope I
So
answered your question.
yeah, but like if such knowledge was like, I want to know only it was available for the kings or it was also available for the people? Because
Okay,
if it was available for the people,
go ahead, go ahead.
then like everyone has to be a leader himself. So even if the dynasty has been collapsed, so amongst the people there has to be someone who has to take the responsibility and establish the dharma once again. So why did not that happen?
Okay, see, as I said, the life is cyclic. Okay, what goes down goes up, goes down goes up. So you cannot change that equilibrium. Okay. The second thing what you must understand is that after 1001 AD, we had all these invasions happening in the land, and people didn't have access ability. See, to have education, you need stability. Okay, you need security. When you don't have security and stability, then people will only struggle for food. Ahara, nidra, bhaya, maituna. These are the four things which people will struggle for. Ahara is food, nidra is sleep, bhaya is fear, to protect them, and maituna, that's having pleasure. So it is only when these four things are satisfied to a certain extent that you will have the desire for knowledge. But when your entire Indian subcontinent is being attacked day in and day out, okay, that you are displaced. For example, there was a great displacement after the Ghazni invasions. The temple were desecrated, and after that, you had the Kashmiri dynasty is gone. So everything, so you don't have a place to stay, you don't have a place to live. So during such time, it became impossible to hold on to this knowledge. And what the Arthashastra has been, is available to us today was probably just kept as a sacred thing, just wrapping it up, and praying it for 4 times a day, because they knew that there was something important, but the ability to understand it, you need time, you need peace, you need stability. You didn't have it, so it didn't go out there. Concerning the idea, was this knowledge only available to the kings and rulers? Definitely not, because the authors of this text were the rishis, and they lived in the forest. Okay, so if you wanted to learn, you needed to go into the forest, risk yourself not eating by the animals. Okay, and finally go to them. So it was a big take. The kings had a vicious intent to had a lot of they had a situational need to know this knowledge and master it. So they would go there and they would learn. But then I told you the story of Bhumanyu. Bhumanyu was not a son of any great king. He was actually an orphan who was later on adopted by King Bharata, and he made his successor. So the idea that this knowledge was only available to the kings is not true at all. And it is all, you can also know this because the Brahmins, or the intellectual class, it's not a caste, okay, it's a class. Also, just like you have the intellectual class today, like the teachers, like the authors, things like that. They were the custodians of this knowledge, and they were open to anyone. So anyone could go to them and they could learn from him. So I don't think so that at any point in time, this was the knowledge only available to king. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, sir. And one more thing, sir, on your website, I saw about a course. So I think it's on the same topic. So can you just elaborate on that a little bit?
Okay. So it's called as Kautilya Leadership Program, and it is a self-paced course. So every 7 days, you will have access to a course where you need to listen to the classes, and there are some activities which you need to do. And the objective of that course, it's a foundation course. See, the idea of Vedic is very different for a lot of people. For example, Srila Prabhupada, the founder of ISKCON, he called this tradition as Vedic. And if you look at Shukracharya, they also call their tradition as Vedic. But Shukracharya follows Advaita. Srila Prabhupada founds Advaita. So the definition of Vedic is very diverse in all this thing. So to understand the Vedic definition of the Arthashastra, you need to understand what they meant by Dharma, they meant by Artha, they meant by Kama, Purushartha and everything. So this course gives you the groundwork that is needed for the next work. So we are launching the second course shortly on the the fundamentals of Rajaneeti. So it will be a phased work. So this is only a one phase work of it.
Great. So I would definitely like to know more about it and maybe join it also.
Sure, you can always ask me, you can always write to me. I'm open for all the emails you want. It's mahesh@vedic-management.com. Feel free
Great.
to write.
I will definitely contact you, sir.
Sure.
Thank you for answering.
Thank you so much, Siddharth. Have a great time. So, hello, Vibha. How are you? Hello.
Hi, this is Vibha. How are you?
I'm good, Vibha. How are you?
I am good. I am an ardent follower of your Facebook page, if you remember my name.
Of course I do. Thank you so much. It's great to finally, talk to you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I absolutely enjoyed your lecture. I have a question about Kootaneethi. How
Yes, sure.
do you apply this ancient wisdom in today's business world, especially in the holistic field?
Okay. Well, I literally do that, give
Yes.
ideas like that every day to a lot of my
Yes.
friends and clients. So here is it. Now, the economy is in a downward trend right now, okay,
Right.
which means that a lot of people are losing jobs, so they'll not spend. A great many industries are going to suffer, and there's nothing more happening out there. So some truth about life is that, and the one truth I always say is, the life is cyclic. It goes up, it goes down. The same with the economy. It goes up, it goes down. If you have an idea of Kootaneethi and if you know your profession well, and along with that, you know the concept of Artha, the Artha will give you a proper guideline to find out at what time this, how more downward the situation could go and when it will recover. Okay. So when the situation is bad, now for example, we have day and we have night. Okay. So when you are in the day, you work as hard as you can, at least in the earlier days. Okay. So in the night, you would just sleep. Okay. However, when when the science and technology innovation began, and then we had the light bulb by Edison, the night time changed. Okay. People who slept at 6, then they started, getting up at 6. Innovation is the absolute keyword to survive these things. And basically through Kootaneethi, what you can do is you can use, for example, if you don't have access to money, okay, money is only one portion of wealth. If you have followed my, other webinar.
Sure.
So you cannot consider that Dhana Lakshmi or currency as a wealth during such times. What you have to constitute is your knowledge, it's Adi Lakshmi, knowledge, your connections, your things like that. You can work with them and you can create a synergy. Okay. Economy is a possibility of synergy. So if you can create a synergy out of thin air, if you can tell people that, okay, you have this, I have this, so let's come together, let us do this. And when the right time comes that, okay, today we'll create something. So when the right time comes to sell it, we'll arrange it in some better way. So in recession, Artha can help you to understand the synergies that are more than currency. The Kootaneethi can give you a strategy to make other people to see the synergy and to make them work for you for a mutually beneficial association. You need to convince people, right? How are you going to convince people otherwise? So you can synergize them. So the art of convincing people to, and also to present them the possible future scenarios, that is also a part of Kootaneethi, and it works brilliantly in most of the times if you implement it well.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Vibha.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, so okay, so I have some chat here, so let me insert that. So Anil Kumar says he's from Vizag, India, and yeah, I'll be happy to answer any question you have. You can always write to me at my email, mahesh@vedicmanagement.com. Okay, Drupad Bhatt, where do you find articles written by you? Okay, you just need to go to my website. It's Vedic Management Center. It's www.vedic-management.com. So, okay, so I have taken more than a lot of your time. You are already reaching a second hour. So before I go, I need to thank a couple of people. I need to thank my mentor, my guru, my friend David Frawley, my good friend Dilip Venkatraman. So both these people have encouraged me to do this. I never thought that I would have such a great audience like you. And I would like to do this for more. You can always suggest me some topics to do this, and it will be wonderful. And before I go, I just need to let you know that, anything good that you have found in my words, my books, articles, or anything, all the good, I give the credit to the rishis and rishikas. There are also some Vedic women sages who are called rishikas. And any wrong interpretations, you can always blame me for that. And I'm so glad that you have been, you have come out in open and you have stayed here for 2 hours, 93 people. So everyone, thank you so much. Pranam and namaste.